Alright, guys, so today I want to talk about survivability. Alright, so with the weekly missions that we're getting now, alright, it is becoming more and more important that we have a large variety of frames that can survive in high level missions. Okay, the EDA, ETA, Netrocells, that kind of thing. It is not a good idea to bring a squishy frame in there that isn't going to survive. Okay, and I had Valkyrie as an option one week, and I tried it. She died constantly, and what we got here is something 100 times better than what we had there, right? Oberon grants righteous negation to himself and his allies in affinity range when he collects health orbs, protecting players against the next instance of damage, stacks up to 3 times. So he's making himself invincible and everyone else invincible as well. Like, this is incredible. Okay. So Oberon to me right now is at the very top of the tier list. I mean, at the very top. So most of the time now, I'm not using Revenant. I'm using Oberon. Okay. And you might be thinking, well, just like with Valkyrie, if there's no health orbs to get, then your passive is going to run out and then you're going to get hit and you're going to fall over, right? That's not the case because I subsumed something on Oberon that fixes that problem completely. I start every mission with that passive activated, and I can keep it activated throughout the entire mission. Now, how did I do that? Oh no, what's this? Dispensary. So I start the mission, I put dispensary down, I collect a health orb, and there you go. His passive is activated, and I can just keep throwing dispensary down constantly. I always have dispensary going. Alright? So, perfect. Don't need anything else. I don't need smite. Okay? I don't. He does enough damage that I want to let you see what I got here. The Kuva Ogress. That's what I'm using. With the Hallowed Ground plus his ultimate, and then I blow him up with this, there's hardly anything that's going to survive that for very long. Okay? That is a ton of damage we're throwing at those enemies. And plus, you know, they also can't touch me at all because I constantly have dispensary going and constantly getting health orbs. Alright? So let's go ahead and take a look at the build. And there's something that is real important we're going to get to. Like, this is an entire discussion about survivability. Alright? So, with Oberon's build, so you can see here, this is the nuke build. Okay, so I was doing some testing and I got the labels backwards. Okay, so just ignore that for now. This right here is what I bring to like EDA and that kind of thing. Because I wanted to make sure I had another survivability tactic going. That's why we have Phoenix Renewal. Okay, so with this plus the dispensary, okay, and you guys are probably wondering, well, you also have dispensary on your nuke build, and you have it here too. Yes, I have it on 3 different loadouts. That is how good I think dispensary is on Oberon. Okay. Okay, so now we're taking a look at helmet abilities, right? So I saw someone using an ability that was a helmet ability in Plague Star. But I have no idea why I didn't put two and two together to try to use that as a survivability tool. And what we're talking about is decoy. So this one I didn't think was very good compared to Savior Decoy. That's the one we're really talking about. So this one, 50% of damage Loki takes is transferred to Decoy and vice versa. So that means if you throw your decoy out in a herd of enemies and they're like blowing up your decoy, they're going to blow you up too, and you're not even getting hit. So this one, nah, I don't think so. Not good. I I didn't even know about this one. Decoy can be cast on enemies. Enemies who attack that decoy receive 5 random status effects, and the reflected damage is increased by 350%. So, are you making a shadow clone then? Like a Necros clone, I think? Like a Necros shadow, I think? Something like that? That's kind of interesting. But this one's what we're really talking about, okay? If Loki takes fatal damage, Decoy absorbs the damage and swaps locations. Also increases casting speed of Decoy by 50%. And this is his helmet ability, okay? And I want to go ahead and clear something up. There's some people, not many, I think, that thinks you can't put augment mods on helmet abilities, right? Like if I put this on Chroma, then Chroma can't use the augment mod for that ability. Yes, he can. He absolutely can. And to further prove that, when you hover over, you can see view augments. They would not have a shortcut to view augments if you couldn't use augments on helmet abilities. So, you know, and sometimes that's the main reason why you want to add a helmet ability is specifically because of the augment mod that you can put on your build in that case. So you might be wondering, yeah, but there's a 60-second cooldown once you take fatal damage, and that's true. Okay, this is where you need to pair this with other things. Okay, so let's put it in a simpler way. Warframes that do really good at surviving a lot of damage, but just end up getting overwhelmed, you know, would benefit from this a lot. So, like Hildren can face tank a lot of freaking damage, right? But eventually, she gets hit with a toxin proc or something like that, or just, a huge rocket or something like that. She's going to fall over, right? You got to think they have to knock her over twice within 60 seconds. So let's go and show you my Hildren build. So here is my Survivor Decoy build, right? We got Toxin Resistance, Prime Sure Footed. Now, here's something that some people miss when they say Prime Sure Footed is garbage. Don't ever use it. They're wrong. Okay? I was in a mission with Rolling Guard, and I kept trying to roll to activate Rolling Guard. But guess what? There were so many enemies using AoE knockdowns, I had no ability to roll to activate this, right? So if you're going for a build that relies on Rolling Guard to help sustain your survivability, then Prime Sure Footed is necessary. Because if not, you're going to get knocked down. And if you get knocked down a couple times in a row, then you're done for. All right? So, no, Prime Sure Footed is not garbage. So, as you can see, this build is centered mostly around survivability. We got prime redirection. We got all three Umbral mods. Okay, that is really important because of the armor buff. So we're getting lots of armor. Okay, so as you can see, we're also using Streamline. That actually does reduce the shield cost for her abilities. And the reason for that is sometimes with Hildren, you might need some CC. That is where her ultimate comes in. That's why we have Streamline. Because without it, that is going to constantly drain her shields, down completely, and then you won't have any CC anymore. That's why we have Streamline on. Reason for that is because we also have Blind Rage. Okay, that is why we have the Umbral mods to boost up her strength as much as possible. As you can see, we have 276% power. Okay, and you can see we have both shield arcanes, Barrier and Aegis. So Barrier on shield damage, 6% chance to instantly restore all shields. 6-second cooldown. Now, on most frames, that is not good and not worth it to use, but on Hildren, it is. Because she has such high shields, she has a lot more chances of this proccing and bringing her shields up to max again. Okay, so that's really good. The Aegis, 3% chance for 30% shield recharge for 12 seconds. Okay, that shield recharge is really good on Hildren, especially. Okay, she loves that shield recharge boost. So, and as you can see, she has 5,700 shields. And her health is really good as well. 1,400 health points right there, y'all. So this is a really tanky build, especially with the Survivor Decoy. I'm covered. If I take a huge rocket to the face, Survivor Decoy activates, and I'm good. And keep in mind, I realize she still could fall over. She could take, multiple rockets to the face, activate that, and then she'll just fall over. But I think with this setup, this is probably the tankiest she could ever be. And then we have other frames that could benefit from this by using shield gate mechanics and rolling guard, lots of shields and that kind of thing, plus the survivor decoy. I think more frames could survive better in like EDA and that kind of thing, right? You guys put in the comments and let me know if there's other helmet abilities that are even better. So we know we have Eclipse, right? And I wanted to put Eclipse on Chroma, right? But it said I couldn't use that with one of his other abilities, like Vex Armor, I think, or one of those. And I wanted to use that with his Vex Armor, like his 1 and 2. I wanted to use that with those just for the damage reduction, right? So I posted in the forums and I told him I would like to be able to separate Eclipse and have one for the damage and one for the damage reduction. So in the case of Chroma, I could say, just give me the DR and let that function on its own and not have the damage boosting ability, because that's not what I want. That's not what I'm going for with that build, right? So that's kind of what I got going on here. You guys let me know what y'all think about this. What do you think about my Hildren build? Okay. Oh, I didn't go over the shards. Because of course I got shards on most of the frames that I use, right? So here's the shards. And a lot of people hate on the blue shards, and I don't get it. You know, for survivability, they are really, really good. And there's another synergy we're going to talk about here in a second. So as you can see, we got 2 shield shards and 2 health shards, okay? And we got a casting speed shard. So, she is set up really well, I think. Okay. So the other synergy that I want to talk about, Hildren doesn't need it. So if we go ahead and look here, Arcane Battery. Gain 0.30 maximum energy per armor point up to 1,000 energy. Now, there's a couple things you can do with this. If you're already using all Umbral mods, you can go ahead and throw this on and take off Prime Flow, right? Or Flow or whatever else you're using. Or if you really need a ton of energy, you can use both with this setup. Arcane Battery with lots of armor and Prime Flow, and you're set. The only thing you got to worry about then is energy economy, because you need both. You need a huge range, and you need a lot of sustainability from pickups and that kind of thing. So that's the other thing you got to think about. Let's go and take another look at Oberon. Kind of jumping back and forth a little bit, but that's all right. So with Oberon, that was one of the main things I was focusing on, was energy economy. Okay, so here's what we did. Effectiveness. 75% effectiveness on energy orbs. And again. And again. We have 1 topaz shard. Gain 15% damage on enemies affected by radiation status. We got 1 of those. I had more, but we needed a lot more energy. And I have 1 of these. Health pickups give 30% energy. Energy pickups give 30% health. So I needed this for the builds that doesn't use universal fallout. Well, that's weird. Why would I have Oberon not use universal fallout? Well, let me show you. For this build, we're using battery and we're using Molt Augmented. Okay. On kill, 0.24 ability strength stacks up to 250 times. Okay. So we're using this instead of universal fallout. So that shard replaces that slightly. It's better than not having it at all. That's for sure. Okay. And as you can see, we don't have Prime Flow here at all. But our armor is what's giving us the energy, right? Because we have Arcane Battery. So our energy is at 643, but when we have our renewal on, we get a lot more energy. And I've seen people take off renewal, right? But if you're going for Arcane Battery, you really need that renewal. Not only that, if you are doing a defense of any kind, you really want to have renewal on. Okay, so, and that's another reason why I'm just loving Oberon. Oberon is freaking amazing right now. And I tell you what, my concern is that maybe he's too good and they're going to end up nerfing him. So here's something I want to say to Digital Extremes if they ever see this. Don't nerf Oberon. Make other frames better and we will use those frames more and Oberon less. Okay? You know, the way DE implemented certain things, I think is just amazing, and I wish they would do that more, right? Like, there's some people I've watched that recognizes that Carrier used to be the only thing that had vacuum. And in fact, that's why it's called Carrier, because it would carry your stuff for you and, suck it all up, and then it would give it to you, right? And there was a mod called Vacuum. The only thing that had vacuum was Carrier. There was no other companions that could do it. Your Warframe had zero vacuum, okay? So you either used Carrier or you had to just run everywhere picking everything up, okay? And it is just so much better using Carrier. So you can imagine back in the day, Carrier was pretty much the only thing being used. That was understandable. His, that ability was simply the best. So what did they do? Okay, all Sentinels now can vacuum. Vacuum can go on everything now. That's great. That's great. That means we can now start using other Sentinels depending on what we're doing, right? That was amazing. And that is the mode that I want DE to keep going in, right? Like when they fixed Charm, I was hoping that they would do it where all of your pets could use that ability for Charm, right? And that's exactly what they did. And I think eventually Sentinels will have charm abilities as well. So I think there's going to be another mod for the Sentinels. This is the mode that they go in when it comes to this stuff. This is what I want them to do when it comes to certain frames being overused. Instead of making that thing less valuable, bring up the value in other things and we will use those other things. That is amazing. That's what we want. Okay? We don't need to nerf Oberon. We need to buff other frames. And we love the major overhauls and reworks and that kind of thing. We love that, but it takes a while. So I think smaller tweaks, you know, like what they did with Decoy, right? I know recently he got a buff to his decoy. That's what we love. So I would say, you know, in the meantime, while you're working on the big reworks, rework things enough to make them more useful. Like the defense objects, we need more stuff that can, buff their health or something, right? Cast an ability and get some of their health back to give you a fighting chance because, man, in some of these missions, it goes down really fast. So, all right, that's it for now, y'all.